Across the remote deserts of the western United States, a series of strange encounters unfolded over multiple nights. The witnesses were not amateur observers. They were federal law enforcement agents operating inside restricted areas far from major cities, highways, and civilian activity. At first, the reports sounded almost impossible, glowing orange spheres appearing over the horizon for only seconds at a time. Smaller red objects emerging from the larger lights before scattering silently into the night sky. A massive fiery orb hovering motionless near a desert rock formation. And later, dark triangular objects drifting over the desert floor with no visible means of propulsion. But what made the incidents difficult to dismiss was the consistency. Multiple teams, separate vantage points, and witness statements describing many of the same details independently. Some of the objects appeared to move without resistance. Some produced no sound whatsoever. One witness even claimed that a spotlight beam appeared to strike something invisible in midair. The reports would later be compiled into official investigative material documenting the encounters. No definitive public explanation was ever provided, and according to the released case summaries, the events remain unresolved. Over the course of 2 days in 2023, multiple federal law enforcement teams operating in the western United States began reporting strange aerial activity over remote desert terrain. The witnesses were experienced federal agents working in restricted areas, not civilian observers or casual tourists. Each team described seeing a glowing orange orb appear suddenly in the sky for only a second or two. Moments after appearing, the orange objects seemed to emit smaller red lights in groups of 2, 3, or even 4. Most of the red objects moved horizontally, but some behaved unpredictably, climbing upward at sharp angles or swooping downward after launch. What made the sightings remarkable was their consistency. Separate teams, positioned miles apart, all reported nearly identical sequences. The events reportedly repeated at least 5 times over the course of 2 evenings. Investigators could not determine whether the witnesses observed one larger mother orb moving across the region, or several separate objects performing the same behavior. Another encounter occurred later that same night in a remote, rocky area of the western desert. 2 agents reported seeing a massive glowing orange orb suspended near a rock formation. The object appeared bright and fiery, almost like molten metal, hanging silently in midair. One witness later compared the object to the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings. The object emitted no sound, no visible propulsion, and no rotor wash, despite hovering above the terrain. Investigators later estimated the object may have measured between 12 and 18 meters in diameter. One witness described the object as hovering with zero resistance or movement, as though unaffected by the environment around it. The sighting lasted roughly 1 minute before the object finally disappeared into the night. Before sunrise, the same agents encountered another unexplained object moving through a restricted zone. At first, the agents believed they were pursuing an unauthorized vehicle. The object appeared to travel just a few feet above the ground while maintaining a constant orientation. Then, without warning, it moved laterally off the road, not turning like a vehicle, but sliding sideways through the air. The agents estimated the object moved between 15 and 20 miles per hour with no visible resistance. One witness used night vision goggles and described the object as an extremely thin horizontal line floating above the ground. After its lights vanished, the object appeared to rise upward while remaining rigid and perfectly horizontal. Later discussions with investigators led the witnesses to describe the object as triangular in shape. Roughly 30 minutes after the previous sighting, the agents returned following reports of another unauthorized object nearby. This time, the witnesses observed what appeared to be a kite-shaped object floating several meters above the ground. One witness stated they could vaguely see distant stars through the object while viewing it through night vision goggles. The object appeared partially transparent and moved slowly as though drifting with the wind. Although the outline remained difficult to define, the lights maintained the exact same formation the entire time. In an attempt to relocate the object, one of the agents began scanning the desert with a spotlight. The witness later claimed the beam appeared blocked by something unseen roughly 50 yards away. Moments later, the obstruction vanished, and the object was never seen again. By sunrise, the desert was silent once again. No wreckage was recovered, no confirmed aircraft were identified, and no official explanation publicly accounted for the objects described by the witnesses. What remained were only the statements. Federal agents from multiple teams reporting glowing aerial objects, silent hovering spheres, and strange triangular forms moving through restricted desert airspace. Some sightings lasted only seconds. Others continued long enough for investigators to gather measurements, sketches, and detailed witness recollections. But even with multiple observers and repeated encounters, the nature of the objects remained unclear. Whether the incidents involved classified technology, atmospheric phenomena, misidentification, or something entirely unknown, those who witnessed the events left believing they had encountered something outside ordinary experience. And somewhere in the vast deserts of the American West, the unanswered questions still remain.